Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. Now this video, we're going to talk about how we can ground ourselves, okay? A lot of people like to use the word to earth yourself, okay? And so essentially, a lot of times where we feel kind of a bit flighty, okay, and we just need to ground and everything to feel settled. For me, what grounding really means is to feel at ease and feel at peace with self, with yourself, okay? And feel balanced, okay? So when I start to identify what grounding is, what comes to me is to be heart-centered, okay? When we do feel flighty and we don't feel grounded is when our mind is in control of our consciousness. And the thing about when our consciousness is being controlled by the mind, we lose control, okay? We feel a lack of control. And usually grounding is that feeling of being back home, okay? Just feeling at ease, okay? Which our home and where we feel at ease is within the heart, okay? So in this video, we're going to talk about how you can ground yourself, okay? There's some simple ways of doing it. Now, let's start off with this one, okay, and we'll get back to the heart. The first one, of course, is just to earth yourself. And what is to earth yourself and what is to ground yourself is on the surface of this planet, okay, and if we look at it from a physical reality, we call it planet Earth. If we look at it from a higher plane of existence view, it's a simulation, okay? Now, that's why it's called earthing or grounding. On the surface layer of the crust of the earth, it's negatively charged, or negative ionization is the charge of the crust of the earth. As we go higher into the sky, okay, and further away from the surface of the earth, there's more positive ionization. Now, the ionization that is beneficial to us is the negative ionization, not the positive ionization. So you can see that this reality from is like a battery, okay? Now, we call it earthing or grounding because we're getting in connection with the earth, okay? The positive ionization, which is not the beneficial one for us, that makes us feel flighty, comes off from a lot of our technology. Our fridge in our home is quite a big ionization emitter. Your dryer, when you're drying your clothes, a lot of the technology is giving off positive ionization. We call that EMFs, okay? Now, quite often when we are not grounded, okay, or earthed, that positive ionization sticks to us and we can't kind of let it out or let it go. We're kind of like a closed circuit of this positive ionization within the body. And a sign of positive ionization and lack of grounding is quite often inflammatory cascade or inflammation in the physical body. Because what we find is when we do earth or ground ourselves, that the body becomes more into an anti-inflammatory state, okay? Now, we know that obviously inflammation is a marker for, at an energy level, non-compatible field or field that's just not sitting right within you, okay? Now, why we call it earthing and grounding, as I've mentioned, is when we connect to the earth or ground, we can then absorb those negative ionizations because the body becomes now an open circuit, not a closed circuit. So what happens, we can discharge the positive ionization, which is that stuff we're getting from our technology, the EMFs, and then we can allow those negative ionizations to come in, which is abundant when we touch the earth with our bare feet or any part of our skin. Funnily enough, we've got the most nerve endings on the soles of our feet to absorb that negative ionization from the crust of the earth, but we have to be barefoot to absorb that. Now, one thing I must say, okay, about this is this the energy of the earth itself? No, okay? It's called earthing and grounding, but it's not necessarily and this is where we differ from a physical perspective, where we can say we're on planet Earth, to a multi-dimensional or density point of view, that this reality is a simulation. Now, why is there negative ionization in the crust of the Earth? Through lightning. Okay. Now, lightning, which is being exerted somewhere around the planet or in this simulation, 24/7 somewhere, the crust of the Earth absorbs that ionization. Okay. Now, what I've come to find is lightning is source energy. Okay. And that's the connection we have with our heart, because when we are wanting to ascend our consciousness, we need to go through the heart to go back to source, to our origin. Okay? So that brings me to the next thing. Now, before we move on in regards to earthing technologies, if you're living in a 2 stories up or 3 stories up or in an apartment, and it's very hard for you to get that time to ground, with the surface of the earth and go barefoot, well, there's lovely earthing technologies that you can get, like bed sheets that you can put on your bed, where you plug it into your wall socket, and because your electrical wiring of your house is earthed, okay, so you can tap into that, and that comes into the silver yarn, which they use as fiber, silver yarn fiber, through those sheets. So essentially, when you're lying in bed on those sheets, it's like you're lying on the surface of the earth. You can also get grounding mats as well, which you can place under your feet while you're working in front of the computer or watching the TV as well. So there are other technologies that you can do. So let's come back to this connection. Okay, so I've said the lightning that gets embedded into the crusts of the earth, which gives it that negative ionization, is source energy. Okay, and this is another thing to add, is who is the god of thunder? Thor. Okay, Thor. Now, Thor, the god of thunder, and you'll notice with the Marvel movies, what's his power? He uses his hammer, and what does he get? Lightning. So Thor is a consciousness that is aligned with source. Okay. Now, so that connection with our heart. So let's come back to the heart, because another great way we can earth ourselves is having the awareness to bring our consciousness into that heart space and away from the mind. Okay? So how do we do that? So you would have heard of practices like meditation. What's the practice of meditation? Is to silence the mind. Okay? Because the way we silence the mind is we bring our awareness into the present moment. That's what meditation is. A lot of the times they'll say, just focus on the breath. Because when you start to bring your focus back onto the breath, you're focusing on the now, the moment. Okay? So when we just live our life more every moment, instead of not placing our focus so much on what's about to come to us, so the future, or what may have happened in the past, but if we bring it into the now, allows our consciousness to fall away from the mind and come into our heart space. Now, as I said, behind the physical heart, there is a space which we call the sacred heart, which is one end of a gateway, a portal. The other end of that gateway, portal, is back to our source, okay, which is our higher aspect of ourselves. It's our origin of where our energy and consciousness comes from. So when we have a connection with source is when we get this feeling of being grounded, okay? Hence why we get grounded by touching the surface of the earth, because we are in connection of that negative ionization that comes from lightning, and lightning is a source energy, okay? So the practice, okay, of evolving your consciousness is about allowing your consciousness to sit in that heart space, because that's where we have awareness. When our consciousness is in our mind, so therefore we're not living our life in the moment or the now, and we're so stimulated by everything happening in the external world, this matrix reality that's trying to draw your attention, which I call distraction, okay? is then we lose our awareness and we lose our consciousness and we lose our connection to source. So therefore, we lose our grounding. Okay. Now, I've got a lot of my clients have bought products from me, particular pendants or bracelets or tools and specific cubit measures. One of those cubit measures is the Ascension Cubit itself. And I often get this. The first thing they'll say when they start wearing it, I feel more grounded. What? And you want to know the what reason why? Because that Ascension Cubit gives you a greater connection, brings you into the heart space, gives you a greater connection with your source. So it gives you the effect of grounding, because that is what grounding is all about, is a connection back with your source self. We lose our connection to our source self when we're too mind orientated and we are too we are not in the now, we're not in the present moment. Okay? So we can wear certain tools or cubit measures that are going to allow us a greater connection with source to feel more grounded a lot of the times. We can use earthing grounding technology, as I said, sheets on the bed, grounding mats. But the greatest empowerment of all that you can do at home, even without buying a product, this is free, is to have an awareness to live your life in the moment and in the now, and remain with your consciousness sitting in that sacred heart space and not letting the mind overtake it. Okay, and you'll feel grounded a lot more of the time. Okay, how many times that we've been so stressed out because we've got so many things to do out here in this this matrix reality, which really is a madhouse. Okay, and then all of a sudden we're confused, we've got no intuition, we're lost. Okay, and that's really what we call a lost soul, because we lose our consciousness when the mind takes us out to this matrix reality. We lose our grounding. So I hope everybody's enjoyed this video. You can always go barefoot on the earth too, and that's 3 as well. Okay, if we use these simple approaches, we can become very empowered. Okay, it's pretty special. So until next time, if you have any comments below, please comment below. If you have any questions, if you'd like to book an appointment with me, go to trulyholistic.net. Share this video to as many people as you like. Thank you very much. See ya.